The grand Colosseum of the Valdari Empire shimmered beneath the twin suns. Its walls were carved from black stone, rising high like the jagged teeth of some ancient beast. Thousands of alien spectators filled the seats, their voices echoing in a low thunder that shook the air. They were waiting for one thing: the combat challenge of Princess Kalira, the undefeated warrior of her people. Princess Kalira stood in the center of the arena, her tall frame wrapped in silver armor that gleamed with a sharp glow. Her skin carried the bronze tone of the Valdari, and her eyes glowed faintly as though fire lived inside them. She had fought countless battles, faced warlords, assassins, even beasts bred only for combat, and she had never lost. Every fight ended the same way, her opponent lying in the sand and her standing proud. Today, though, her mood was not fierce but playful. She had grown bored. None of her people could match her anymore. She wanted something new, something amusing. And that was when her gaze fell on the humans. The humans were recent arrivals to the wider galaxy. Their ships were smaller, their weapons less advanced, and their bodies looked weak compared to the tall and powerful Valdari. Many species laughed at them, seeing them as fragile creatures, not fit for true war. Yet the humans spoke of courage, endurance, and survival. Words that seemed strange coming from such a small race. Kalira spotted one among them, a human officer, standing calm and still among a group of diplomats. He wore a simple uniform, not armored, not decorated, but there was something in his eyes that drew her attention. He looked steady, unshaken, even as thousands of Valdari warriors shouted and cheered around him. His name, she learned quickly, was Captain Marcus Hale. With a smirk curling her lips, Kalira pointed her spear at him and called out, her voice carrying through the Colosseum with the force of thunder. "You, human, do you dare stand before me?" The crowd roared with laughter. The idea of a human fighting Kalira was absurd. It would be like sending a bird against a storm. Marcus met her eyes. He did not step back. His expression remained calm, though his heart beat hard in his chest. He had read about the Valdari culture, their rituals, their duels, their honor system. He knew this was not just a fight. It was a test, and he also knew that refusing would mark his people as cowards in the eyes of the Valdari. Kalira twirled, her spear easily mocking him. "You can't last a minute against me, human. One strike and you will fall." The crowd cheered at her words. Valdari warriors pounded their weapons against their armor, creating a thunderous rhythm. Even some of the diplomats looked at Marcus with pity. No human could survive against the Princess of War. But Marcus simply nodded once, his voice calm, as he answered, "I accept." Silence fell for a moment. The Valdari were shocked. This fragile human dared to accept a duel with Kalira. Even Kalira blinked, caught off guard, but then her lips curved into a wide smile. Amusement filled her chest. Perhaps this day would not be boring after all. The duel was quickly arranged. Valdari attendants rushed to prepare the arena. The sand was smoothed, banners unfurled, and the ceremonial gong placed at the edge. Kalira removed her cloak, revealing the toned, powerful muscles beneath her armor. She stretched her arms, confident as ever. Marcus, by contrast, did not have heavy armor or a shining weapon. He wore only his uniform, reinforced lightly with protective plates, and carried a simple training staff given to him for fairness. He looked ordinary, but his mind was clear. He was not entering this duel to overpower her. He knew that was impossible. Instead, he remembered the history of his people, how humans had survived endless wars, crushing hardships, disasters, and even the dark vacuum of space. His body might not match hers, but his spirit carried something different. Endurance. He closed his eyes for a brief moment, breathing slowly. Images passed through his mind. Soldiers in trenches enduring storms, a fire. Explorers crossing oceans with nothing but faith. Astronauts floating above a blue planet with only thin metal between them and death. Humans were fragile, yes, but fragile things could bend without breaking. That was their strength. When the gong keeper raised the hammer, the crowd leaned forward. Kalira's eyes glowed brighter, excitement sparking in her veins. She lived for this, the moment before the clash, the silence before the storm. The gong rang out deep and loud, rolling through the arena like thunder. The duel had begun. Kalira stepped forward first, her spear slicing through the air with a sound like tearing wind. The ground shook as her foot landed, sending dust flying. Her expression was fierce, expecting the human to fall instantly. But Marcus moved aside, quick and light, his staff raised just enough to deflect the edge of her strike. The spear missed his chest by an inch, cutting only air. The crowd gasped. Marcus did not strike back. He did not need to, not yet. He focused on surviving, on reading her movements, on feeling the rhythm of her attacks. Kalira grinned, her blood racing. Interesting, she muttered, spinning her weapon again. For Marcus, the fight was simple in his mind. He just had to last. 1 minute. 60 seconds. It sounded short, but against someone like her, it would feel like eternity. The audience leaned in, voices rising as the princess struck again and again, and the human dodged, blocked, and endured. The duel had only just begun, but already something strange was happening. The crowd, who had expected quick humiliation, now watched in silence, curiosity growing. This was not the fight they thought they would see. And deep inside, Kalira began to sense it too. This human was different. The Colosseum stood in silence for a moment after the gong. The Valdari audience had expected the human to fall instantly, but Marcus Hale was still standing, his staff raised, his breathing steady. Kalira's first strike had missed him by inches, and that was enough to stir curiosity in the vast crowd. The great Colosseum itself seemed alive. Its black stone arches held banners of silver and crimson, fluttering in the dry wind. The ground was a wide circle of fine sand, glowing golden beneath the twin suns. Around the arena, the crowd of thousands pressed forward, their voices rumbling, low, waiting for what would happen next. Kalira adjusted her stance, her glowing eyes locked on Marcus. She felt excitement bubbling within her chest. For years, every duel had been easy. Her opponents either fell too quickly or never had the courage to face her directly. But this human, weak-looking as he was, had already surprised her. And Kalira loved surprises. She smirked and spun her spear, the silver tip flashing in the light. "You move quickly," she said, her voice carrying over the sand. "But you won't last." Marcus said nothing. His focus was sharp. He was aware of every movement around him, the shifting sand beneath his boots, the way the light caught on Kalira's weapon, the rhythm of her breathing. He knew he was outmatched in strength, but he also knew this wasn't a contest of power. It was a test of endurance, of survival. The crowd began chanting Kalira's name, their voices rising in a storm. They wanted to see their princess crush this human. They wanted to see the sand stained with proof of her strength. Kalira lunged again. This time her spear came down in a powerful arc, a strike that would have shattered a stone pillar. Marcus dodged to the side, rolling across the sand, and barely managed to block the second strike that followed. The force rattled his bones, but he stayed on his feet. The audience roared. Some laughed, some shouted in disbelief. To them, Marcus looked like prey avoiding the claws of a predator. Yet still he did not fall. Kalira tilted her head, narrowing her eyes. Her grin widened. "Not bad," she said. "You have balance. But can you keep it?" Marcus tightened his grip on his staff. He did not waste his breath answering. Words would not save him here. Only patience, timing, and control would. Kalira advanced, her steps heavy against the sand. Every movement she made was filled with confidence. She had been trained since childhood to fight, to command, to lead armies. The spear in her hands was more than a weapon. It was part of her very soul. Her strikes rained down like storms. Each swing was fast, each thrust precise. Marcus blocked what he could, dodged what he couldn't, and when he was struck, he absorbed the pain and kept moving. His staff bent, slightly with the force of her spear, but he used it not to attack, only to guide and deflect. The seconds ticked by, though they felt like hours. Marcus's chest rose and fell quickly, but his eyes never lost focus. His mind whispered reminders. Just keep standing. Breathe. Move. Endure. The crowd's mood began to shift. At first they had been amused, expecting a short and easy victory. But as Kalira's spear clashed against the human's staff again, and as the human refused to fall, the laughter faded. The Valdari warriors leaned forward in their seats. The chanting died down. Now they watched in silence, curiosity replacing mockery. How could a fragile human withstand the strength of their princess? Kalira noticed the silence too. It fueled her pride. She wanted to show her people that no matter how long this human lasted, she would still crush him. With a roar, she launched into a furious flurry of strikes, each one faster and heavier than the last. Marcus bent low, twisted aside, ducked beneath her sweeping weapon. Sand sprayed into the air as the spear cut through it. He was struck across the shoulder, pain flaring sharp, but he gritted his teeth and pushed forward. His mind repeated the rhythm of survival: move, bend, endure. Kalira's grin faded. The heat of the twin suns pressed down on the arena, but Marcus hardly noticed. Every sense was alert. His eyes tracked Kalira's every movement. His ears caught the faintest shift in her breathing, the sway of her spear. The crowd had quieted, as though even the massive audience realized this duel was no longer simple entertainment. This human was lasting longer than anyone expected, and the Valdari, for all their confidence, were watching with something closer to awe. Kalira spun, her spear with deadly grace, the tip flashing like lightning. She moved faster than most could follow, her footfalls thudding against the sand, creating tremors that made the ground itself seem alive. She aimed a strike directly at Marcus's chest. He bent back just in time, feeling the rush of air as the weapon passed. Instinct and practice guided his movements, honed through years of training, though none had prepared him for the sheer speed and precision of a Valdari warrior. His staff deflected a second strike, and he rolled to the side, sand spraying around him like sparks in the sun. Kalira's eyes narrowed. This human was learning. She could see it in the way he anticipated her strikes, the way he adjusted his stance. Normally opponents crumbled after the first dozen hits, but Marcus had already endured more than Kalira had expected anyone to survive. "Impressive," she said, her voice low, almost lost beneath the wind and the murmurs of the crowd. "But will it be enough?" Marcus did not answer. He did not need to. Every motion he made, every dodge, every careful block spoke louder than words. He moved like water flowing around her attacks, never resisting directly, absorbing energy and redirecting it. He did not strike to harm. He struck to maintain balance, to survive, to endure. Kalira laughed, a sharp, clear sound that carried over the arena. She was enjoying herself now. "So you think you can last?" she said, lunging forward with a thrust. Marcus twisted sideways, feeling the tip of her spear graze his shoulder. Pain flared, hot and sharp, but he steadied himself. His legs moved instinctively, rolling back to absorb the force and push him up again. The sand under his boots shifted, giving him just enough traction to stay balanced. The crowd gasped. Many had expected him to falter on the first hit, but he was still on his feet, still standing, still ready. Kalira's eyes flicked across the audience. She could feel the change in energy. The spectators who had laughed at the human were now whispering among themselves. Some even cheered silently for him, their curiosity and admiration growing with every second. Kalira growled, softly shifting her stance. She had been trained to read opponents, to anticipate their moves, but Marcus was not following patterns. He was unpredictable in his simplicity, his movements guided by instinct rather than style. That made him dangerous, in a way she hadn't expected. She launched a series of rapid strikes, her spear slicing through the air with impossible speed. Marcus ducked under the first, stepped aside for the second, blocked the third with his staff. Each impact reverberated through his arms and legs, and though his muscles screamed, he refused to falter. The fight was no longer just a test of skill. It was a battle of wills. Kalira attacked not just to harm but to break him. Marcus defended not just to survive but to prove something greater: human resilience. The sand around them became a whirlwind as they moved. Kalira's strikes carved lines through it, and Marcus's dodges and blocks sent it flying in clouds. The arena was alive with motion, and the spectators could barely follow the dance of human and Valdari princess. Kalira lunged again, this time aiming for his side. Marcus anticipated the movement, stepped back and pivoted, letting her momentum carry her forward. He could feel the energy of her strike, the raw power that could have crushed anyone else. But he absorbed it, let it pass, and stayed on his feet. For a moment, Kalira froze. Her glowing eyes widened in surprise. No one had ever endured a strike like that without faltering. Her pride flared. She was determined not to let him intimidate her, but a flicker of respect crept in. Marcus, meanwhile, was aware of every second. He was studying her movements, learning the rhythm of her attacks. Humans were not as strong or as fast as Valdari, but they had another skill: adaptability. He had seen how his people survived against greater forces, how they turned disadvantages into strength. That knowledge, combined with quick reflexes, was giving him a chance to endure where others could not. The duel had passed 30 seconds, and the crowd's silence was thick with tension. No one spoke. No one moved. They had come expecting a swift victory for Kalira, but now they watched a human standing, breathing, and meeting the attacks of the galaxy's greatest warrior. Kalira's strikes became more aggressive, more precise. Each movement was a challenge, each thrust a question. Can you survive this? Marcus answered not with words but with endurance. He dodged, blocked, and twisted with a grace that defied his size. Each second he remained standing, he earned not just survival but recognition. The sands beneath them shifted with every movement, patterns forming and reforming as the human and the princess circled each other. Kalira's spear flashed again, aiming for his chest. Marcus sidestepped, barely avoiding the tip. His staff swept forward, blocking a second strike, deflecting the force safely to the side. Kalira's breath was even, controlled, but her mind raced. This human was more than a curiosity. He was testing her patience, her skill, and, without intending to, her respect. The audience leaned forward, holding their collective breath. No one had imagined the human would survive this long. The Valdari. Warriors exchanged glances, their expressions a mixture of disbelief and admiration. The human's resilience was not just unusual, it was extraordinary. Marcus steadied himself, sensing the final flurry of strikes coming. He knew he could not overpower her. He could only endure, adapt, and last long enough to prove that humans were not weak. Every move, every dodge, every breath was a testament to that. And Kalira realized something important in that moment. This was not a human to laugh at. This was a human to respect. Kalira's eyes blazed with intensity as she circled Marcus in the arena. Sweat ran down her brow, but she remained poised, each movement deliberate, each strike calculated. The crowd was silent now, watching closely, almost afraid to breathe. No one had ever seen the Valdari princess so challenged. Yet Marcus remained standing. He was bruised and breathing heavily, but his posture never faltered. His calm defiance was unsettling, and Kalira for the first time felt uncertainty prick her pride. She lunged again, faster this time, her spear spinning with deadly precision. Marcus barely managed to twist aside, feeling the wind from the weapon cut across his face. His staff met the tip of the spear with a sharp clang, redirecting some of the force. Kalira gritted her teeth. He was learning. He was adapting. That was something she had never encountered. Most opponents crumbled after a dozen attacks, but Marcus had endured dozens more and was beginning to anticipate her movements. Interesting, Kalira muttered, her voice tight. You are not like the others. Marcus did not respond verbally. Words were useless in the heat of combat. Instead, he adjusted his stance, lowering his center of gravity, moving with fluidity and awareness. Each motion was calculated to absorb force and maintain balance. The human was simple, yes, but every move carried purpose. His strategy was not strength. It was endurance, patience, and adaptability. Kalira's strikes became more aggressive. She unleashed a flurry of attacks, weaving her spear in complex patterns designed to overwhelm. Marcus dodged and blocked with precise timing, his staff clashing against her weapon repeatedly. Sparks flew where metal met metal. Sand sprayed around them as their movements tore at the arena floor. Every strike Kalira delivered seemed to be met with unexpected resilience. The crowd was stunned. Murmurs rippled through the audience. Many Valdari had begun to doubt the inevitable. Could this fragile human endure the princess's attacks for more than a few seconds? The answer was clearly yes. He was not just surviving, he was learning, adapting, even predicting some of her moves. Kalira felt frustration prick her mind. She had never felt challenged in this way. Her confidence, usually unshakable, wavered slightly. And yet that challenge ignited a spark within her. This duel was no longer simply about proving superiority. It was about testing limits. She was determined to push Marcus further, harder, faster. She lunged, aiming for a strike at his legs, to unbalance him. Marcus shifted his weight, sidestepping, letting her momentum carry her past. He countered with a small, controlled push of his staff, forcing her slightly off balance. It was a minor move, but Kalira noticed. She realized that he was not only enduring her attacks, he was subtly influencing them, using her own force against her. For a moment, Kalira paused. Her sharp eyes studied him. His simplicity, his calm, his refusal to yield. These were not weaknesses. They were strengths, and that realization stung her pride more than any blow ever could. "You are learning," she admitted quietly, almost to herself. Marcus allowed himself a brief glance at her. He did not smile, but his eyes carried quiet determination. He understood the nature of the duel now. It was no longer just survival. He could survive, and if he survived, he could inspire respect, not just from Kalira, but from the entire Valdari race watching him. The Colosseum seemed to hold its breath. Every eye followed the duel as Kalira's spear flashed through the sunlight and Marcus' hail twisted, rolled, and blocked with precise timing. The sounds of metal clashing and sand shifting echoed like thunder, but above it all, the rhythm of survival was clear. Kalira's chest heaved slightly, her glowing eyes narrowing. She had expected the human to fall long ago. Yet here he stood, bruised, bleeding slightly from cuts across his arms and shoulders, but still upright. His staff, battered but steady, had become an extension of his endurance. The first minute of the duel ticked by, though the crowd hadn't fully realized it. Marcus had endured longer than anyone expected. The gong keeper lifted his hammer for the ceremonial strike, meant to mark the passing of the first minute. The deep sound rang across the arena, vibrating through the stone walls and rattling the banners. For a moment, silence fell. No one moved. No one breathed loudly. The human had lasted a full minute against the galaxy's fiercest warrior. Kalira froze mid-lunge, staring at Marcus. Her expression shifted from amusement to surprise, then to awe. She had underestimated him, not just his body, but his spirit. She realized that the human's strength was not in speed, not in raw power, but in something far more dangerous: resilience. Marcus, though exhausted, did not falter. Sweat ran down his face, his uniform torn and sand-caked, but his eyes were clear and focused. He had endured not through strength alone, but through patience, awareness, and determination. Every move he had made so far had been calculated, every dodge and roll executed with the single goal of survival. And now, as the first minute passed, he had done what no one had done before. He had survived Kalira. The crowd erupted, voices exploding into cheers and shouts. Some were Valdari, their pride challenged, their respect for the human growing. Others were spectators who had simply loved witnessing resilience in action. Marcus had done something extraordinary. He had defied expectation, defied history, and proven that humanity was far stronger than it appeared. Kalira, however, was not finished. Her pride still burned bright, but a new respect had entered her eyes. She stepped forward, spinning her spear in a controlled arc. "You have lasted longer than I imagined," she admitted, her voice calm but edged with determination. "But this is not over. One strike, and it will end." Marcus tightened his grip on his staff. He did not step back. He did not falter. "I am ready," he said simply, his voice steady despite the exhaustion that pressed on his muscles. His body ached, every joint protesting, yet he knew he could endure longer. Humans had survived worse. Humans had endured impossible odds before. And Marcus Hale would endure this as well. Kalira lunged forward again, faster than before. The tip of her spear sliced through the air with a sharp whistle. Marcus twisted his body, barely avoiding the strike, and blocked a follow-up blow with his staff. The impact sent a jolt up his arms, but he absorbed it, his stance steady. Every strike he endured increased the tension in the arena. Every second that he remained upright challenged the Valdari idea that humans were fragile. The princess's eyes narrowed. She had trained for decades to read opponents, to anticipate moves, to dominate the battlefield. Yet this human was teaching her something new. Endurance as a weapon, resilience as a shield. His strength was subtle, quiet, and terrifying in its persistence. Kalira attacked again and again, faster, sharper, more unpredictable. Marcus ducked under one strike, rolled beneath another, and blocked with precise angles that used her own momentum against her. He was not attempting to defeat her. He was surviving, enduring, and demonstrating something far greater than strength. He was showing the human way, persistence, adaptation, and spirit. Minutes, or what felt like minutes in the heat of the fight, passed as they exchanged blows. The crowd's excitement grew. They were witnessing history, a human standing against Kalira, the undefeated Valdari princess, and surviving not by matching her strength, but by enduring, learning, and adapting. Kalira's frustration grew, but with it came admiration. She realized that her attacks, however precise, could not overwhelm this human's resolve. His endurance was not a weakness to exploit. It was a force of its own. Every strike she delivered only confirmed it. Marcus, feeling his body scream for rest, did not falter. He focused on the rhythm of the duel, on the feel of the sand beneath his boots, on the energy of Kalira's attacks. His mind was clear, his strategy simple: endure, adapt, survive. He had been underestimated from the start, and now he was, proving that humans could not be counted out so easily. The Gong Keeper's eyes watched the passage of time closely. Each strike, each roll, each clash of metal against metal was a testament to human resilience. Kalira lunged one last time, faster than before, but Marcus shifted, twisted, and used the momentum to guide her spear away. He had learned her pattern, predicted her movements, and endured the storm. The crowd erupted once more. Valdari warriors stood in awe. For the first time, they had witnessed the human spirit on full display, a single human enduring the full power of their princess, surviving beyond all expectation. Kalira lowered her spear slightly, breathing deeply. Respect filled her eyes. She had underestimated humanity. She had expected weakness, and yet she had found strength, not brute strength, not speed, not raw power, but endurance, determination, and courage. The human had proven that even those who appeared fragile could endure what others could not. Marcus lowered his staff slightly as well, his chest rising and falling with controlled breaths. He had survived the first minute, and in doing so, he had earned something far greater than victory. He had earned respect. He had proven that humans were not fragile. Humans were resilient, adaptable, and capable of facing the strongest of foes and surviving. Kalira's lips curved into a small, wry smile. "You have done something no other opponent has done," she said quietly. "You have endured. You have survived. And for that, I respect you." Marcus simply nodded. He did not boast. He had survived, and that was enough. The duel was far from over, but the first real victory had been won, not by striking, not by defeating, but by standing, enduring, and proving the unyielding strength of the human spirit. The crowd's cheers echoed across the Colosseum, celebrating the impossible endurance of a single human against the galaxy's fiercest warrior. And somewhere deep in Kalira's mind, a thought formed. Perhaps humans were far stronger than anyone had ever believed. The crowd was still buzzing with excitement. The duel had surpassed all expectations, and every eye in the Colosseum was focused on the two combatants. Kalira, the undefeated Valdari princess, stood with her spear lowered slightly, her chest rising and falling as she regained her composure. Marcus Hale, bruised and dusty, held his staff firmly, yet his posture remained steady. Neither of them spoke for a long moment, the weight of the battle filling the silence. Kalira finally broke the stillness. Her glowing eyes softened, and she allowed herself a small smile. "You have proven something remarkable, human," she said. "Not only that you can endure, but that you can inspire respect through resilience. Few have ever done that against me." Marcus nodded slightly, acknowledging her words. He did not speak of victory or pride. His expression was calm, steady, but his eyes shone with quiet determination. He understood that the duel was more than combat. It was a statement, proof that humans were not to be underestimated. The princess studied him for a moment, her mind racing with new understanding. Humans, she realized, were unlike any other species she had faced. They were weaker in strength, slower in speed, and less durable in body. Yet they possessed something else entirely, an indomitable spirit, the ability to endure beyond limits, and a will that could match even the fiercest warriors of the galaxy. "You have stood against me longer than anyone else," Kalira admitted, "and for that you deserve respect. Your people, they are stronger than I thought." Marcus allowed a small nod of gratitude. Words were unnecessary. The respect had been earned, not through speech but through action. He had endured, and that endurance spoke louder than any declaration could. The Valdari crowd erupted in applause and cheers, the noise filling the Colosseum like a wave. Many had come expecting a quick, easy victory for Kalira, but now they had witnessed history. A human had survived her attacks, not by matching her power, but by enduring and adapting. The impossible had been achieved, and every spectator recognized it. Kalira's gaze shifted from the crowd back to Marcus. She lowered her spear completely and took a deliberate step closer. Her armor glinted in the sunlight, but her movements were no longer aggressive. There was no threat now, only acknowledgement. "You fought not with strength but with patience," she said. "You adapted when I expected weakness. You endured when others would have fallen. That is a power I have rarely seen." Marcus remained silent, but his eyes held a quiet fire. He had learned through this duel that humanity's true power was not in brute force but in determination, in the ability to survive and rise again no matter the odds. That principle had carried his people through countless wars and challenges, and today it had carried him against the galaxy's greatest warrior. Kalira extended her hand, the gesture formal in Valdari culture. "I yield," she said, "not because you